Life and business can feel chaotic when you're trying to do it all. That's where Andy Melton Coaching comes in. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Andy Melton has helped high-achieving leaders find freedom in their time, relationships, finances, and purpose. His 90-minute strategic rhythm reset is more than a coaching session. It's a chance to redesign your week so you can get more done without burning out. You'll create a personalized rhythm blueprint that aligns your goals and priorities and walk away with a clear plan to focus your energy. Trade chaos for clarity and bring your dreams to life. To learn more and book your session, visit scalinguph2o.com/Andy Melton. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/ANDYMELTON. Don't wait. Schedule a strategic rhythm reset with Dr. Andy Melton today. Are your glycol systems protected and operating at their best? Thermal Fluid Technologies is here to ensure they are. Trusted by industry professionals for over 25 years, their protocol heat transfer fluids provide unmatched corrosion protection and system performance for industrial HVAC, process heating and cooling, and food and beverage applications. Need a clean start? Their cleaner and degreaser prepare your system for years of trouble-free service. And their state-of-the-art lab offers one of the most comprehensive coolant testing programs available. Upgrade your system's performance today with Thermal Fluid Technologies. To learn more about Thermal Fluid Technologies, go to scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Thermal Fluid Technologies, where performance meets peace of mind. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And Nation, I want to give a shout out to everybody out there that had a first day. I know that's everybody, but think about how intimidating your first day in this industry was. Now, maybe your first day was last week. Maybe it was 20 plus years ago. We all start with a first day, and this can be a pretty intimidating industry to get into. I mean, just think about it. We have to know chemistry. We have to know plumbing. We have to know electricity. We have to know all of these things in order to do our job. And we have to know all of the equipment. And not only do we have to know how to run our test procedurally, we have to know when our tests are, and I'm using air quotes, you can't see it, lying to us. And everything else that we use in our diagnostic process, we have to know more than the equipment itself because we need to determine, one, is it telling us the truth? And then two, what do we do if it is or isn't telling us the truth? And on our first day, we don't have any context. Or maybe you were born in this industry and you've got a little more context than somebody else. But I remember my very first day that I went out with my father as a water treater. Like he said, this is your job. And I said, okay, I accept this as my job. And I wasn't just working with my dad anymore. I was now responsible for knowing all the things my dad knew. Moreover, I was responsible to the customer. And I hardly knew what that cooling tower and chiller were doing, or what that boiler was doing, or what that heat exchanger was doing, or what that very unique piece of equipment that's just in this one customer's facility, what that was doing. And all the special things that I had to know about the water that I was treating to run through that piece of equipment so it didn't damage it. In fact, it enhanced it. There's just so much that we had to know, and you don't know on your first day. And it's very intimidating, and I know we all go through that. But now think about where you are now. And I want to pick on some people now because there's some people that might not be that much further from their first day. And I'm not saying you've been in the industry for a month. I'm saying you might be in the industry for years, but you haven't done what you've needed to do to make sure you're continuously advancing in this industry. Now, on your first day, it's easy to do that because everything is new. And if you don't learn, you are going to wash out, pun intended, in this industry. And that's probably for your first year. But then after that, you have to have the desire and the motivation to continue pushing forward so you can continue to learn more. There's so many water treaters out there that have learned a lot on their first year, and they've simply just repeated that year after year. Now, if I'm picking a nerve with you because that sounds like you, okay, well, we've identified that. You've identified that. Now do something about it. And I hope because you listen to this podcast, you've got over 500 ways, because that's about how many episodes we have, that you can do something about that. Think about something differently. Try something differently. Ask yourself the phrase, what do I not know that I don't know? And go from there. There is so much that we can learn in this community, in the Scaling Up Nation, in the industrial water treatment field, that you should never be bored. My dad used to tell me if I ever got bored in this career, I was doing it wrong. And I've shared that with the Scaling Up Nation for years. And I want you to think about that. If you ever get bored in this industry, you are not doing it correctly. Now, maybe you're getting burned out, and that is something totally different. By the way, if you're getting burned out, you're not doing this industry correctly either. And there are so many things that you can do to help with that, but that's a different show. Make sure you're taking account with how you're feeling about your job, about your career, about being in the industrial water treatment industry. And if it is not excitement, I can't wait to get up in the morning and go out and do this industry. Folks, that's how this industry should be. And if it's not like that for you, I want you to ask yourself some questions on what are some things you can do to get there. And it's not going to be you're going to do one thing and then it's automatically going to get there, because it's going to take a lot of work. Because if you haven't done anything from your first year to continue making yourself better and keeping this industry interesting to your mind, you got to reprogram yourself. You got to start thinking differently. You're going to start thinking differently because you're going to start saying differently. And then that saying differently is going to be doing differently. And then eventually that's going to lead to thinking differently. And it's going to be a pain in the butt at first, but trust me, it's so worth it, because otherwise you're bored. And that's not fun. So you're not happy to begin with. So go through a little bit of pain to make sure you are making this career all that it should be. And somebody that is helping us do that each and every week is our friend James McDonald. And here is a brand new Words with Water with James.
Hello and welcome to Words of Water with James, the industrial water game show where I give you the definition and you get to guess the word or phrase being defined. Will you rise to the top or get blown down to try your luck another day? There's only one way to find out on Words of Water with James. Today's definition is the upward flow of water through a resin bed to clean, expand, and reclassify the bed. Can you guess the word? The answer is backwash. Okay, for those who got it correct, step to the right. For those who got it wrong, please step to the left. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties, folks. No one will be blown down to the basin. I'll have to put in a service ticket for this. I'm James McDonald, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Words of Water with James.
Well, thank you, James. And Nation, something that I really consider is how many people I know in this industry. And I am extremely fortunate because I have this podcast. I have tenfold, maybe 100-fold increased the people that I know in this industry because I have this platform. And that's why I really try to talk about the Scaling Up Nation, because we're all part of the Scaling Up Nation. And I want to introduce people that I meet to you so you can know them as well. But really, when you know people in this industry, when you have people that you can call and ask questions to, or just tell a story about something that might be annoying you, and you don't have to talk about, oh, well, a cooling tower is this. And then you start telling your story and they ask another question because they don't get it. And you're like, oh, well, that piece of equipment does this. But that's not really important to what I'm trying to tell you right now. Please stay with me. When you have somebody that understands this industry that you are friends with, you can just talk about the core of whatever you want to get to, and they get it. So it's my hope that you already have some people that you can do that with. But if you can't, the way you can do that is you can go to some of the conferences that we mention on this podcast. Make sure you wear your Scaling Up H2O button. You've heard me say at other conferences that is a magic button. That is a networking button. That is a button to allow the entire community there to let them know that you listen to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, and that is a conversation starter. That is an icebreaker that allows for you to very easily go into a conversation saying, hey, I noticed your button. I listened to that podcast too. What's one of your favorite shows? Boom, crack. The ice has been broken. And now maybe if you don't already, you now have that person that you can talk about your day, and that changes everything. So let's talk about a few that you might want to put on your calendar. So the 2026 SOCMA conference, which is the Society of Chemical Manufacturers and Affiliates, is having their conference March 4th through 6th in Nashville, Tennessee. So, Nation, this is a conference all about specialty chemical suppliers, buyers, and experts. And this is where they go to learn about new opportunities, new insights, new solutions, and meet new people. So if you want to learn more about this conference, we're going to have that on scalinguph2o.com over on our events section. And then while you're there, check out the annual Water Reuse Symposium. That is taking place March 8th through 11th in Los Angeles, California. This is actually the 41st annual Reuse Symposium. So this symposium is all about water recycling, different opportunities that are available around water. It covers policy, technologies, operation, communication, and of course, networking. So if you want to learn more about that, we're going to have that on our show notes page. Also, taking place June 1st through 5th in Houston, Texas, is the 20th International Water Association Conference entitled Leading Edge. So we're going to have all the information about that conference. And just for fun, I'm going to throw you one more. We normally do 3, but you're getting a bonus today. So March 9th through 10th, the Industrial Water and Pre-Treatment Conference, which is taking place in Harrisburg, Virginia, which is right in the Shenandoah Valley. Beautiful there. We're going to have all that information for you. And of course, all the things we didn't have time to mention, we're going to have that information as well. So be sure to make some time to go to our events page and check out all the things that are going on in our fantastic water treatment community. Well, Nation, here is our next interview. My lab partner today is Katie Holliday of Apex Water and Process. Katie, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Katie, it's great to have you here. I understand that you are like a super fan of this podcast.
I am. I actually remember meeting you last year at AWT, and I remember hearing your voice and sitting there, I know this voice. And then like 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the guy on my podcast.
Well, that's awesome. I love meeting people at AWT. And of course, we got AWT coming up not too long from now. Are you going to be there?
I think that we actually might be there. I'm not entirely sure yet, but that'd be really cool.
Awesome. Well, please come find me if you are there.
Get another little pin.
Yes, yes. Those buttons, I love giving those away. And my hope with those buttons is that people get to meet more people because they see that button. And now that breaks the ice. And they're like, oh, I listened to that podcast too. What's one of your favorite episodes? And now you got a new friend.
Exactly.
Katie, do you mind telling the Scaling Up Nation a bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Katie. I am a chemist actually from University of Utah. I currently work for Apex Water and Process as an account manager, and I have a lovely family, my kids, my husband, I adore. Yeah, that's me.
Now, you started out in the lab. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I honestly thought I was going to end in the lab. I really thought that was going to be my career path. I thought I was going to be a lab rat. And then as I moved up in the lab, it got less flexible. And I was like, I did instrumentation, ICP, for hundreds of water samples. And so when I'd get there, I would have to stay and then make sure I finished. So there was like no flexibility whatsoever. And so I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, I really need to find something that has a little bit more flexibility for my small kids and my husband. And so that's when I started looking for another position.
So, how was the transition going from being in the lab to out in the field?
Oh my goodness. It was a transition.
I
So
bet.
it's actually kind of crazy how it all started. So I was on Indeed, I was on LinkedIn, and a recruiter from Apex Water and Process found me. And I remember I saw the position, I went and got a cup of coffee. And when I came back, I was going to apply for it. And she had already messaged me. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is meant to be. And so then I looked at everything on there and I'm like, calibration, like I can do all this. I do this in the lab, you know? And so I interviewed, and then they said to me, we need to take you in the field because this is a lot different than the lab. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go into the field, and one of the guys is telling me, okay, fill this up to 25 mils for my dropper test. And I'm like getting eye level and I'm like so precise. And he's like, you don't need to be,
You're a chemist, of course.
he's like, you don't need to be that precise. And I was like, okay. So the difference between the lab, I mean, ICP's parts per billion, you know, and in the central plant, it's very dirty. So it was a huge transition for me. And even now, I still wear the safety gloves, I still wear the goggles. I don't think that part will ever leave me, the chemist in me.
Well, that's good. Everybody should wear their PPE when they're testing.
Yeah.
What do you think your advantage was from being in the lab now being in the field?
I mean, I tested a lot. So I found out that once I knew those procedures and those test steps, man, I'd be flying. And I caught on so fast. I believe it was maybe like a week of just teaching me the testing. And I even taught my boss and my coworkers stuff. I would be like, oh, that can't be wet when that goes in that instrumentation. They're like, why? And I'm like, well, the light hits it right here. And they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm like, and you can't use a paper towel with the glassware. You need to use something soft or you're going to scratch it, you know? So I think there was a lot that I brought to the table coming from my chemistry background going into the industrial field.
Well, maybe help the Scaling Up Nation. What are some tips that you can share knowing about being in the lab that maybe we have some bad habits in the field? So we should be using microfiber to wipe off our glassware, not paper towels. What are some other tips?
Yeah, they're called chem wipes. We use them in the lab, and that was the biggest thing for me is I saw the guys using their shirts, paper towels, and that scratches that glassware. And so that was one of the first things I had recommended. Another one is, oh my goodness, the electro juice in the pH meter.
Hmm.
Well, it's always got to stay wet, you know. In the lab, we always had those in the solution to protect them. So those are the two things I could think of off the top of my head, but I definitely brought a lot of knowledge in that sense.
Yeah, when those probes dry out, they're done.
Yeah, They are, and they're like, "It's not working." I'm like, "Yeah, you don't have electrode solution in that."
It's interesting because if you take care of those things will last a really long time. And I think that's the adage. If you keep it clean, if you keep it well hydrated, it's probably going to last a lot longer. Well, obviously, than if you don't.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's probably why my boss, if I ask him, I'm like, "I really want this instrument," and he knows I'm gonna take care of that. That's gonna last a really long time.
Now, when we were doing our pre-interview, you mentioned in your previous company, you were the first female hire that company ever did. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that? And what did that mean for you?
It was pretty huge. So when I first interviewed, Apex Water and Process acquired Western Water Technologies. So Western Water, in their 30-plus year history, had never had a woman as an account manager. So I'm going through the interview and I'm like really vibing with the two managers, and I'm like so excited. I'm like, I really hope I get this. I really, really want this. I think I could be really good for this job. And so when the interview's over, they're pretty much telling me like, you've got the job. So and then I was like, what do I wear? And then he's like, they look at each other and like, what does she wear? We've never had a woman in the industry, but we've never hired a woman before. And then when I got off that thing, I called my aunt and I was like, they've never had a woman in their history. And I like felt so honored and I felt so good about it. And they were telling me this is a very male dominated field. And we want to make sure you know that. And they kind of gave me a heads up about everything, but I felt really good about it. And even going in, there are not a lot of women out there. Like when I go to the central plants and I'm like, wow, this is very unique and very cool to be in this field.
Do you think that's changing? I will say throughout my lifetime, it's definitely changed where I've seen more women, still not enough women, but definitely more women. And then last year, one of our team members did some stats, and I think 35% of our interviews were women, but still male dominated.
Yeah. Well, I brought over the second woman for Western Water. So we worked in the lab together. So in our company, we have another woman as an account manager, but from a couple years ago to now, I have seen more women operators in the central plant. And I always think that's so cool when I see a woman in the central plant because it's usually just all men. So yeah, we're coming. We're gonna represent at some
You're
point.
here, and we are glad that you are here. Is there anything that maybe companies can do better? Maybe there's a company listening today and they're like the company you mentioned. They've never hired a woman, not because they don't want to, but maybe nobody's applied. Is there something they should do different in their job description or the conversations that are having? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think for Western Water slash Apex, they had a recruiter that found me. And yeah, they never had a woman in this position, but I think the recruiting, you should recruit those women because especially with us being in STEM and chemistry, like we worked really hard to get there, like and we work really hard in the field as well. And so I think that's definitely something that jobs can do. And then when you do get us, man, put us in the field. Let us get dirty. Let our hands get dirty. Like that has been probably the best thing my boss Bernie Peacock has done for me is he didn't let me sit in the office in heels or anything. He was like, "No, we're going out here. You're going to learn this and you are going to get dirty and sweaty." And I think that was probably the best thing he could have done for me.
Now, you mentioned Bernie Peacock in the pre interview, and you didn't call him your boss, you called him your mentor.
Yes. Everyone needs a Bernie Peacock. Everyone needs a Bernie Peacock in their life because this is a man who in I didn't even know what a cooling tower was when I started. And he didn't care. He brought me into this industry. He taught me everything in the field and he's been my hype man from day 1. And he told me I want you to be able to go into a central plant and I want you to be able to recognize everything in there. I want you to know all of this. And that was a really big thing for me. And if I have any issues with boilers, cooling towers, SPD, anything, oh, he's answering the phone. He's getting on FaceTime with you. I feel like every single person needs a Bernie Peacock in their life.
So I love that we're talking about the mentor protege relationship. You being the protege in the relationship, what makes a good mentor? What makes a good protege?
So that's actually a good question because I told you earlier I brought over the second woman. She's much younger, and it's her and another guy. They're both pretty new with the company, and I think the best thing you can do for them is answer if you can. And I Mark actually said this in one of your interviews with you guys, and he said, if a customer or someone's calling you, just text them back if you can't answer and say, I'll call you right back, and I found out that the two people I'm mentoring, they gave feedback saying she always answers the phone, and if she can't answer the phone, she texts back and says, "I'll call you right back." And then I get that call back. She doesn't forget. So I never leave them hanging, like because I know, like being new in this industry, there's some things that even today for me, I'm like, "Whoa, why is that happening?" And it's good to have someone there to mentor and teach you what's going on.
What I find so interesting about this story, and I love because you're doing it correctly, not only did you have a mentor, you became one.
Yes, that's what I thought was like, is so cool is because when I get that feedback, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm like giving it back,"
Yes.
because Bernie just gave me the best version of himself, and I feel like I'm doing what Bernie taught me. And early on in my career, Bernie took me to so many lunch and learns, so many presentations, and then now I'm doing that for those people now. I'm like, "Okay, I'm here for backup. You present the lunch and learn, and then if you need help, I'll jump in." But now I'm like, wow, I'm like a Bernie Peacock. I'm starting to mentor my people too.
You have a connection with the Navajo Nation. My grandparents lived in Phoenix, Arizona, where you are,
Okay.
and it's hot there. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I remember they were very active in doing things with the Navajo Nation there, and they took me to this one demonstration. I remember I was maybe 14, but it was all about water. And the whole culture there just has this very pretty much everything is centered around water. Can you talk a little bit about how you're involved with the Navajo Nation and what you know about that culture around water?
Yeah, most definitely. So, I'm an enrolled member of the Shoshone Bannock tribe, and then I am also Navajo of the Bitterwater clan. And so, my involvement with Navajo Nation now, it's actually kind of a cool story. So, I have this picture of me and my great grandpa when I'm like 6 years old, and we're standing really tall, and he's just really strong, tall Navajo man. This was in Tuba City, Arizona, and I haven't been to Tuba City, Arizona since I was like 6 years old. And so now my role with the Navajo Nation is I'm actually treating water in Tuba City, Arizona, where my grandpa's from and where his stomping grounds, which I think is so cool because as a 6 year old, you never think, oh, you're going to grow up to be a water chemist. You're going to grow up and you're going to do water treatment where your grandpa is from. And with our culture, Shoshone Bannock and Navajo, water is life. It connects us with our ancestors. It's very sacred, and every drop matters. My grandpa Freddie was telling me about how back in his time, they used to go to a windmill and get their water, and that they shared water to wash their faces. Like every single drop matters, especially on the reservation.
That's fascinating. I remember that there was a ceremony, there was a chant. I mean, it was just beautiful.
Yeah, it is really beautiful. Everything's centered around water. And it's just amazing now that I'm able to treat water there and then help them preserve it and keep it safe.
Now, I mentioned you live in Phoenix, Arizona. It's hot out there. How do you live out there? It's like 120 degrees.
So, that's a good question. So, I'm actually from Tucson, Arizona. I went to college in Utah. And then about 5 years ago, I talked my husband into moving to Arizona. And we just traded in the snow for the hot summers. And I mean, it's like 2 or 3 months where it's so unbearable and so hot. But then the rest of the year is just beautiful and amazing. And my husband was all for being able to wear shorts in the winter time.
You guys don't have a winter. It's like what, 70 degrees at its
Yeah,
coldest?
yeah. I made sure to take him to visit Arizona in February when it was 17 degrees, not August when it was 120.
Now, my grandparents, when I would go visit them and it was like in the 70s, they would say, make sure you take a jacket. I'm like, a jacket? Are you crazy? But they would have jackets on.
Yeah, you acclimate to that, and then it is a little chilly because even now, we've been here for 5 years, and I mean, we wear hoodies in the winter even though it's 70 degrees.
So here in Atlanta, almost 100% humidity. So when we do calculations to figure out evaporation, we've got to account for all that humidity in the air. You guys get tremendous evaporation. I'm kind of curious, since you've kind of seen it in other states and now in Arizona, how are your calculations for evaporation different?
You're right, you are evaporating a lot more, and I was told from Bernie, if you can treat water in Phoenix, Arizona, you can treat it anywhere. Arizona has the hardest water in the country, and so with the hardness, with the chlorides being so high, you can only have so many cycles because that's what the cooling tower manufacturers recommend.
I remember when I visited a friend out there, I want to say they were doing like 2.5 or 3 cycles with acid. That was amazing to me.
I have one account where we do acid, and I believe we have it about 4 or 5. But
Okay.
yeah, 2 or 3 is pretty standard. I mean, if you get to 4, that's pretty good.
Here in Atlanta, we have hardly anything in our water, and actually, time is our limiting factor. We have to set the controller to kind of get the phosphates out within the right amount of time, make sure that we're cycling water over. So we can do 10 concentration ratios all day long. Isn't it amazing how different it is all over the country?
Well, you're actually really correct about that because the the water treatment in Phoenix versus when I go up to Tuba City is so different because their water has less hardness, less everything. But to be honest, I've only treated water in Arizona. So now that you're saying 10 cycles, that sounds like wow. I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, you really have to know what you're doing where you are. We have some insurance policies built in with the incoming water where I am.
Yes, you definitely do because if you let it go too high, you're definitely going to scale it up.
Hold on to your test kits, folks. We're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. Hey there, Scaling Up Nation. It's Trace Blackmore. And if there's one thing we know as water treaters, it's that success comes from building strong partnerships. And that's exactly what North Metal and Chemical Company is all about. My friends at North Metal are committed to creating long-term relationships built on trust, reliability, and innovation. Their industry-specific expertise means they understand your challenges and work tirelessly to provide great Northwest products along with a personal touch. With dedicated technical support, North Metal and Chemical Company stands out as a partner who truly cares about your success in the industrial water treatment space. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/north and start building a partnership you can count on. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/north. North Metal and Chemical Company, serving the water treatment industry since 1921. And now, back to our interview. So you do a lot of work with healthcare facilities. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would say about 90% of my work is with healthcare. So I specialize in SPDs. I do a lot with hospitals and Legionella prevention. I want to say SPD is probably one of my favorites in water treatment.
So everybody can follow along with the Scaling Up Nation. SPD stands for.
Sterile processing unit.
So, with that, if somebody is thinking, I want to learn more about that, what exactly is that?
So, sterile processing unit is a unit. It has a lot more restrictions. So, if you want to learn more about it, reading like TIR 34, ST 108, that gives you an idea. There's just a lot more testing and stuff that comes along with that versus like the cooling towers and the boilers. Cooling towers have like prevention with Legionella, but with the SPD, we all have loved ones that go through surgery, and this just makes sure that infection doesn't get to them with sterilizing the surgical units.
Katie, how is working with SPD different from regular water treatment, like boilers and cooling towers?
So SPD, it's a lot more clean for one. So we're working with endotoxin filters, we're working with UV lights, we're working with so many things that have to be so clean because it's going to the end process. There's a lot more testing that is involved in this. I mean, we're doing laboratory testing. It has the same thing where it's testing like cooling towers, but there's very strict standards directly tied to patient safety. And then cooling towers, like there's Legionella that we have to make sure, but it's a lot of that too is just protecting the equipment from corrosion, and same with boilers.
Katie, what do you see the biggest opportunities in healthcare are right now?
Right now, I would say SPD testing and Legionella prevention. I mean, I do tons of Legionella where it's either secondary disinfection in the cooling towers or the domestic water. I'm doing tons of Legionella testing because they just want to make sure it doesn't get passed to their patients. So I would say Legionella prevention and SPDs right now.
Let's go a little full circle, and I want to ask you more about mentoring because there's so many people out there that could be a mentor and they're not. And there's so many people out there that should have a mentor and they don't. So let's talk about them first. There's somebody listening out there today and they know they can get the benefit of having somebody that's very experienced in this industry, but they don't know how to ask. Maybe they don't even know who to go to. What advice do you have for them?
Well, this actually goes back to AWT with Mark Lewis. So at the end of his presentation, he said something that was so impactful for me, where he said something that if you don't have a mentor, I'll be your mentor. And then I thought about it, I'm like, wow, he doesn't even know me, but he's so willing to be my mentor, you know? And so if you don't have that person, I mean, I would try going to your manager. For me, I pick everyone's brain because we're all good at certain things. I'm not shy too. Maybe you're shy, but maybe like your manager can give you some options with who can mentor you. Maybe your manager will mentor you, you just haven't asked.
Well, let's talk about the other side of that. So now there's somebody that's got some experience, and I'm sure they've received that experience from people that have poured into them, whether it was an official mentor protege relationship or not. But let's say there's somebody out there that can give back and they're not. What do you want to say to them?
Oh man, you really should give back because we all start from somewhere, you know? And I think it's just such a gift to be able to share what you have. And that was one of the things with starting this. The person before me, he was in the industry longer than I've been alive. And just having that knowledge base and being able to share that with you, I think that you should be a little more open to giving a little bit back. But I can't talk for everyone, of course. But you don't understand how much it means to us, you know? Like that person I was talking about, I would ask him questions and he would talk to me and tell me how they tested before the DR 900. Like he would tell me all these different things and I'm like, wow. I mean, times have really changed, you know? One of the best things that happened for me when I first started was my uncle actually introduced me to this woman that was in a male dominated field. Like she started as a welder and she's working in this male dominated field. And I sat down with her and I told her, everything I was experiencing, all the challenges, all this stuff. And she gave me so much good advice about this is how you overcome it. Don't listen. Just go for it. And she gave me such good advice that day. I left that lunch. I text her right after. I'm like, gosh, I am so motivated and inspired by everything you said because at first it's very intimidating because you're the only woman in every single room and with her, she was the same way and she was much older than me. And so it was even harder for her back then. And so for her to tell me the story about how she started and how she is so successful and now all the men are like going to her for everything. I'm like, I want to be that person. Like I want to do that. Like I want to be her when I grow up.
Katie, what would you say some of your biggest challenges in water treatment have been?
So starting this, I didn't own a tool. I didn't own any tools. I mean, I don't think I've even put an IKEA table together. So so then when I get into the industrial field and pumps are going out, tubing's breaking, all this stuff, I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And what I've done now, I started like not being mechanically strong, but I like made myself a toolbox. I've got two big toolboxes and they're organized. I've got spare parts now. And my weakness has actually become one of my strongest attributes about myself now, because it wasn't that I wasn't mechanically strong. It's just because I hadn't had the opportunity to show what I could do. And I have a really good example of this. So I had this pump, it was a peristaltic pump, and I had just installed it. Everything was good. Well, the heat did something to it. And I ended up taking it home with me. I gave them a temporary pump for their bias. I took it home with me. I watched YouTube videos. I went through the whole manual. I ordered the parts, took it apart, put it back together, put it back on site, and then it was working just fine. So it's not that wasn't my, it was my weakness, but now it's probably my best strength is that I'm able to do that now.
I love that. And how awesome is YouTube?
Oh my goodness. It's kind of everything. It has everything on there. It even has videos of how to put things back together because I'm like, oh no, where does that part go?
Yeah, it's amazing. I now sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but when I was in the industry, we didn't have a resource like that. And I remember a similar experience to what you just described. And I had the explosion diagram. And as I was taking it apart, I was laying it out to make sure it was in the same orientation for me to put back. Oh boy, would I wish that there was YouTube back then.
Yeah, YouTube. You're 100% correct. So, one other thing that has actually been great for me with making me mechanically stronger is iPhones. The camera, the video. I'll have someone show me something and I'll video it, and then I can go back to it if I need to later on. So that's another thing. YouTube and iPhones, like the cameras on the phone.
We have a process here at our company where if we're doing a new install during the survey process, we'll try to get pictures and a video of where everything's going to be installed. So that way we can put it on one of the larger screen TVs when we get back to the office and we can actually talk about how are we going to install this? What's the footprint do we have? And how do we make sure everything comes in and looks neat and it's easy to service? And because we now have that ability to take something that's out in the field and now bring it into the office, our installs have gotten so much better.
I think that's amazing because then you can reach a larger audience now. Like it's not just the installer and one other person. You actually can show lots of people. And with that, I have a OneNote, that program on Microsoft, and I share my notebooks with my team. So if they need something, they can go into my notebook and be like, okay, how did she do this? And then they can go and take from what they need from my OneNote.
OneNote is one of those programs that you're either in love with or you're maybe intimidated by because you can do pretty much everything. You either have a word processor or a spreadsheet. I mean, this is everything that you can throw word processors, spreadsheets, pictures, anything you can think of into a progression and like a notebook. That's, I guess, why they call it OneNote.
Yeah, I'm such a notes chick. I love notes. And with that, I love that I can put OneNote on my laptop and it syncs to my cell phone. So if I'm in the field, I don't have to bring out my laptop. I can just get my cell phone and take pictures and then come back on the laptop and add what I need. So, I mean, OneNote's pretty awesome for me.
So give us a tip. So you're out there every day in the water treatment industry. What are some ways we should be using OneNote?
So this is actually a really good thing. So if you have a OneNote and you're going on vacation, that's what I use it for me. If I go on vacation, the person that covers for me has everything right in front of them. They have the customer phone number, if there's any lock boxes, I mean, everyone knows where they pull their samples from, but maybe they can't find a coupon rack. You know what I mean? I have every single thing, every component from my customers in that. Because when I started, I was taking over someone's position and they were getting promoted. So then I'm like, I need to make sure that I know exactly where every single thing is. And so I created it where if someone saw it, they could be able to follow it right away.
Now, I love that, but unfortunately, that's not the norm. When you give somebody that, what's their reaction?
They're like, How long did this take you? You've got everything labeled." And they're so impressed by it because You literally can go into it and see, oh, if I need to get into this, I call this person. Or if I need the code for this, I can get it here. I don't need to call Katie. Like it's all here.
If you're preparing that well to go on vacation for a week or two, I can't imagine how well you're servicing your accounts.
Okay, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I service my accounts well, but I also do it because I have a really good team and also my customers are awesome. Like they make it the best for me. So I have my operators testing when I'm not there. So I don't have like, oh, I won't say it doesn't happen all the time, but I don't have a lot of surprises. When I like, for instance, I went to an account today, an account that's very large, and they just did testing last night. And so I knew kind of what I was going into. So I do try to give it my best, and that might actually be the chemist in me too, is that I look at every single thing.
Katie, what is your favorite part of this job?
I have to say, I really love my customers. I love my customers. I love operator training. Like, because some accounts I'm only there twice a month. And so it's really great to have my operators trained where they can notice if the tower's blowing down, like, because the valve is stuck open. Like, I love being able to teach my guys, like, what to look for. So I love the operator training, my customers. I love SPD, and that might just be like the lab side of me because that goes more lab. But I love that water is life, and there's like my day never is never the same. Like every day is different, and I just love all the learning that goes with it.
So, with everybody listening to this podcast, what's the underlying message you want to make sure that they hear today?
I would say that water treatment's pretty awesome and that there's so much to it. And if you're like me, where you don't like to stay still, it's a really awesome job. And if you like to learn, oh my goodness, you're learning something new every single day.
Katie, I've got a few lightning round questions for you. These are questions that I ask all of my guests, and we kind of compare and contrast and see how our guests are similar and different. Are you ready for those?
Yes.
All right. So, you now have the ability to go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a water treater. What advice would you give yourself?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. I wish I wouldn't have been afraid to ask for help. I mean, there were some filter housings that weren't hand tight and needed the strap wrench, and I sat there trying to get it open, and then I'd call someone eventually after so long, and then they couldn't do it either. And I'm like, it's not because I was weak; it was because someone really tightened that. So I wish that going back, what I thought was a weakness wasn't really a weakness. It was actually smart to ask for help at that time.
Now, let me ask, would that question change at all if I would have said your first day as a lab technician?
Same thing. I would definitely ask for help.
Katie, what are the last few books that you've read?
Actually, you suggested it. You had her on your podcast not that long ago, the fearless pricing.
Oh, isn't Casey great?
She's
Yes.
awesome. And I feel like getting into this field, if you don't have a background in pricing or anything like that, she makes you know what you're worth. So I loved that episode. So I actually just finished that like last month. And then my second book, I'm really into uh, murder mystery kind of thing. So The Perfect Marriage, and then Under the Bridge was the third one.
When they make a movie about your life, who do you want playing Katie?
Oh man, I would take Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock, because she can do anything. Like she's like super goofy, which I feel like I can be, and then she can be like she's just so versatile. I would love Sandra Bullock.
Katie, my final question. If you could talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
Okay, so I went to University of Utah, and someone that I would like to have met is Dr. Henry Eyring. So he's a famous chemist from University of Utah, and his son was actually my mentor in college. This is probably very nerdy of me, but I took physical chemistry two with his son, and after class, I'd go hang out with him and like pick his brain on things. And so I think like being able to go back and talk to his dad would have been cool because I mean they seemed like they were very similar, and Dr. Ted Eyring was one of my favorite people. So I think his dad would be very interesting to meet.
So, two chemists talking to each other. What was your favorite chemistry class?
Physical chemistry too, with Dr. Ted Eyring. That was my absolute favorite class. It was probably one of the hardest classes. And I just loved the thermodynamics. I loved that everything had a mathematical reason. And I just loved that class so much.
Organic chemistry is what opened my eyes about the spatial relations and the structures, and it kind of brought it out of the textbook, and then I could actually see it in my mind. That just changed the entire concept of what I had about chemistry.
So you are a visual. You love the visual stuff. So I used to have to get those models and take them apart and then be able to see like, oh, if I
I
add
love
this.
doing that. They were like, "Oh, you have to do a model," and everybody in class would go, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yes, that's awesome."
I mean, those models definitely helped us. Like we really needed those. So
Well, Katie, you've been delightful. Thank you so much for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast and telling us about your journey.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Like I said, it's my favorite podcast, and I drive a lot, and I have so many downloaded episodes that I still haven't listened that I have in my library. So I'm really happy to have been your guest.
Nation, I really enjoyed that interview. I got to meet Katie at an AWT technical training a few trainings ago, and she was delightful. She was actually one of the people that would answer questions as I ask questions. By the way, if you were ever in one of my classes, when I ask a question, here's the proper format for that. I will ask a question, and then that's where you audibly answer the question. It makes it go so much easier when you know that information. I can't tell you how many times I ask questions and I get no response at all. I do that to make sure that we're all at the same place. And then when I ask if people have questions, that's to make sure that if there are some questions there, we get those answered before we move on. That is so important in our fundamentals and applications class that we do because that allows us to build a foundation. And a lot of times, people in that course have just been in the industry for a few months or maybe a year. We've had a couple people that said, I just started today, which I think that's great that the people they work for are giving so much faith to the trainers and the Association of Water Technologies to help bring them up properly in the industry. I am going to say, I think taking a brand new employee out with you for at least a week or so to show them some of the equipment and give them some context, I think that they would be set up a lot better than just having their first day. That's happened twice. Than having their first day right at the technical training. So that's my advice to you if you're listening to that. But you know what? It's your team, it's your company. You get to do whatever that you want. But I just want you all to think about all of the things that we learned during this interview. And I started off by talking about your first day. And if you ever think about if I look at things like I did my first day, I'm just naturally inquisitive. And all of those questions and all those desires to want to learn more, they're just natural. Maybe that's the challenge this week. Look at everything you do in this industry for the next week like it was your first day. Now, obviously, you're going to know a lot more than you did on your first day. But what are the things that are behind the scenes that maybe you don't know? Or, my favorite question, what are the things you don't know? And by looking at them through the lens of your first day, maybe now you can start to not only ask that question, but answer those questions and start putting yourself into rooms where people can help you answer questions like that. Nation, thank you for listening today. And of course, we're going to have a brand new episode for you next week. Until then, take care, folks. Struggling to prepare for the Certified Water Technologist exam? Our Certified Water Technologist prep course is here to help. Gain the confidence you need with comprehensive study materials and a 100-question practice exam. And the best part, we offer a free version to get you started. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep and take the first step towards your certification today.